Wow, is Australia wild and wacky?
Wacky and wild.
We're going to tell you all about it in this week's video. Where are we?
We are in Wynnum, Queensland, Australia, just east of Brisbane on the beach, having a great time. And wow, Australia, right?
Yeah, wow. You know, I think before we came to Australia, I had two images of Australia. One is of the Opera House, right?
Yeah.
And the other is of Outback. You know, so you've got like red, you know, and the Uluru Rock and whatever, and then you have the Opera House, and I don't think I expected anything else. And so now to be here and it's everything else, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Who are we, by the way?
I'm Steve.
I'm Chris.
This is Chris.
Yeah.
We are Eat, Walk, Learn. We are traveling the world on a wonderful adventure and invited to have you come along with us.
And we do it full time in our Nomad life.
Full time.
Yeah. Okay, so I got to tell you a little story. Can I tell you a little story?
It's a big story.
So I grew up in San Diego, and all over San Diego are eucalyptus trees. And the reason why there's Australians call them gum trees. The reason why there's eucalyptus trees all over San Diego is, and actually up and down California, is way back when they're putting the railroads in for western expansion in the United States, they imported the eucalyptus trees as a grove agriculture in order to grow them quickly so that they could cut them down and make railroad ties with them. Well, for whatever reason, bad or good news, I guess, the eucalyptus grew too crookedly and they did not make good railroad ties. So there's eucalyptus trees all up and down California. And I went to UC San Diego where we had groves of eucalyptus trees, and the unofficial mascot of the campus was the koala. So I I feel attached to eucalyptus trees. Like my whole life I've had eucalyptus trees in them.
Yeah, there are no eucalyptus trees in Ohio. I think the first time I ever saw one was when I was, 19 years old.
When you came to California and you saw eucalyptus tree, right?
Probably.
Anyway, so one of my dreams has been to go to Australia and see the eucalyptus trees. So this past week, we Google how to find free koala in Australia. Well, first they tell us to go to this sanctuary, and we're like, we're not going to do that. They got to be around somewhere. So we thought, we Google this place that says go to the Brisbane Bushlands and do a walkabout in the eucalyptus grove. I'm like, great. So off we go, and we get there. Now, okay, I'm just going to tell you, we didn't see any koala that day. So don't, we do see koala, which we'll share with you at the end of the video. But this particular day, it was about the eucalyptus trees.
And I'm like, it's a cool forest. These trees are awesome.
And he's like,
she's
whatever.
jumping up and down.
And there are 9 different varieties of eucalyptus trees. I mean, here I am. I grew up in California. I think I'm a eucalyptus expert. We got this. And there's only one species or maybe 2 species that are in California. And then to go to this eucalyptus grove, and there's 9 different species.
Who knew?
Who knew? The Australians knew.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. I mean, they grow they're like pine trees.
They're wild.
Or oak
and they're
trees
wacky.
Yeah, they're wild and they're wacky. So anyway, so I was thrilled to see all these different types of eucalyptus trees and the smell of them and the different barks. And there's one that's called squiggly gum.
Yeah,
which was really cool. These squigglies in the bark and stuff. So anyway, I was really excited about our eucalyptus. So number 1, wild and wacky trees. But also we went to we saw, so in the States we call them star trees. So they're big, tall firs or evergreens with big, long limbs that have 5-star needles off of them. I'll show you a picture of them. We call those star trees. Here I don't know what they're called, but they've got pine cones on them. These big monster pine cones, which I don't know, maybe the ones in the U.S. are sterile. I don't know, but here they got big pine cones on them. So I'm amazed by the big pine cones too. And then we went to clearly I should have been an arborist. We go to the rainforest.
Yes.
Who knew Australia had rainforest?
And it's right outside of Brisbane. It's close.
Yes, we went to Mount Tambourine. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man.
Keep your day job.
What was your day job?
Oh, you're not very nice to me. Anyway, we go to Mount Tambourine, and there's 3 or 4 different national parks there. And there's a rainforest, and we go walking in the rainforest, and there's
very cool
palm trees. All of my images of Australia having palm trees, never in my life did Australia have a palm tree. So.
Would you like to know more about trees?
Okay, we will move on. we'll
and
move
what's something
on.
about trees?
But while we're in the national parks up at Mount Tamborine, there's 3 or 4 up there, we did find all kinds of crazy, wild and wacky wildlife.
Yeah.
Right? What was the first one?
Well, if you caught our last video, we talked about the rangers that we ran into in American Samoa, and we ran into more park rangers in the rainforest. And one of the women that was telling us about the environment and telling us about the views and what we were seeing, and she says, we have some tawny frogmouse that showed up this morning. Like a tawny frogmouse.
What's a frog mouse?
Some people think they're owls, but they're not owls. And we're like, okay. And she said, do you want to see them? Yeah, we want to see them.
So if you know Steve, he used to have an owl rookery in our house. We used to collect owls all around the world.
Not live
and
owls.
there's this rookery of all, like, I don't know, 50
I
different
like
types
owls.
of owls. One
Owls
from
are cool.
Mexico and one from Taiwan or whatever. Anyway, and so he's like, something that looks like an owl? Count me in.
And it's a whole family, and they're nocturnal, and they're sitting up on this branch, and it's just very cool to see the tawny frogmouth birds.
Which looks like an owl, but it's not an
Look
owl.
like owls, but they're not owls. So that was a great experience. And then also on that same hike, we saw the
Patty melon.
Patty melon.
So we see
which
this
is-
little thing over in the, and we're not sure what it is. It looks like what's a baby kangaroo thingy called?
A what? Wallaby?
A wallaby.
No.
It looks like a small wallaby. And we're like, oh, it's a wallaby. And so this local comes walking by. He says, no, that's a patty melon. And I'm like, say that again?
Yeah.
He says, patty melon. And I'm thinking to myself, what he's saying is this is a creature that looks like a patty melon, like a piece of produce. I'm thinking it's like a
I
melon
thought he
or a
was
honeydew
talking
melon
about
or
a
something.
patty melt sandwich.
Like what? So this is an animal called a patty melon, and it's in the rue species or in the marsupial species, and it is smaller than a wallaby.
Yeah.
So you have like patty melon, then wallaby, then kangaroo, which we're not experts in marsupials, but that's how he explained it to us.
Right.
And then
But
go ahead.
He's not that excited about it. He's like, oh yeah, you see
it's a
those
patty
all
melon.
right. He said, but you know what's really great? Squirrel! In the United States, you've got those things in the trees, and we're like, what? And he said, squirrels. We're like, yeah, squirrels. He said, squirrels are awesome. I
And
love
they're
squirrels.
black and they're brown and they're red, and we're like, squirrels, okay.
So he was really excited about squirrels, and we were really excited about patty melons.
Patty melons.
And so we had this
Culture clash.
yeah,
Featuring
this
patty
love-
melons and
love
squirrels.
fest about
Yeah.
small animals that live in the forest.
Anyway, so speaking of small animals, we saw a bunch of birds in the forest too. And I know we've got some birder friends. Rob and Dave follow us for birders. And I'm sure you guys have seen all these, but we were really excited. So, when you think of Australia, what's the song? Kookaburra
Kookaburra
sits in the old gum tree. Kookaburras everywhere.
Are cool.
Yeah, they're really cool.
And they're big, and they just kind of sit on the limbs, and they just kind of look at you, and
And they sing songs, and it was fun to see the kookaburra trees.
Yeah.
Birds. And then, actually, we didn't see this in the forest. These are different places we've seen different birds, but we also saw this bird called...
lorikeet. Is that what you're
the rainbow lorikeet. Yeah, that was here in the
rainbow
neighborhood. We
lorikeet.
saw rainbow lorikeets just cruising here in the neighborhood. I'm like, that's a wild animal that people pay a lot of money for to put in a cage in the U.S. And then we saw... So there's this other bird. It's the white Australian white ibis that has a nickname. It's called the bin chicken because apparently it's a bird that it's kind of like a pigeon. It's everywhere and it gets in the trash. And
Goes in the
like
garbage bins.
if you're having French fries at the outdoor fish and chips shop, they'll be right there begging for your fries and stuff. So bin chickens, also known as the
Ibis.
Australian white ibis.
Yeah. We also saw some white pelicans. Very cool. They look
Yeah.
a little bit different than the white pelicans that we saw in Mexico. And where else have we seen white pelicans?
In the U.S. too, we've seen the white pelicans.
I've seen them in the U.S., yeah.
And then the pigeons here, they got crust on their head. They're crusted pigeons. They're like fancy. They look like they got their like royal colors on with their little crusted thing on their head. So it's kind of fun. Oh, and then we went for a walk along the Brisbane River, and this is not a bird. We saw the water dragons.
Yeah, very cool. Lizards.
Big lizards,
yeah.
like iguanas. But I wonder if they change colors like iguanas. But anyway.
I don't know. This one was really hard to see that I took a picture of because he was sitting on this concrete and it was like the exact same colors as the
as the concrete.
As the concrete
Yeah.
that he was sitting on.
But we know you guys are hanging out for the kangaroos. So then we got a beat on, there's this trail called the Koala Trail just south of Brisbane, right on the Gold Coast border. They said, go to the Koala Trail, you'll see koalas and kangaroos. We're like, okay, because we hadn't seen them yet. And we're cruising along to the park.
Yeah, we're getting close,
Yeah.
and I see something out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, what was that? Like, is something moving? I'm like, what was that? I said, Chris, turn around. You got to see what I don't know what it was I just saw, but you got to see this. So she, turns around, and we go back, and there's this big grass area that's kind of behind a house.
Kind of a backyard.
And there's kangaroos, and they're just
Everywhere.
hanging out. There's like, five or six, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe a dozen or so, yeah.
So we're like, we're Americans. Take pictures of the kangaroos. And then we were like, okay, that's enough. And then we go drive the rest of the way, which is like maybe another quarter mile to the parking lot, to the park. And as soon as we get out, there's hundreds of them.
They're everywhere. There's packs and there's all these signs. They may look cute, but they're pack animals and all this stuff. And don't.
Yeah.
And then there's a sign that says warnings about kangaroos. Hold on to your baby. That was really interesting. But anyway, so people had told us that kangaroos are kind of like the deer of North America. They're everywhere. That's true. I mean, the deer aren't in packs like the kangaroos are, but they are everywhere.
Deer will, run away if you get close. These
they
we weren't getting too close, but there were
big ones and little ones and boys and girls and babies and everything. So kangaroos everywhere. So I feel like check kangaroos.
So we walked down a koala trail because our mission here was to find a koala in the wild, and we walked all the way down this trail.
And a eucalyptus grove. And a Malibu grove.
Right.
Yeah. And we're walking, and we get
turned around.
Yeah, we're like, haven't seen any. We're done. We're turn around, and
you say because you saw it first.
Oh, and so then you turn around, and the trail the trail is white, and I see this thing in front of me, like maybe 100 yards, and I'm like, it's brown. It's about 3 feet, and gray, and I'm like, that's a koala. That's a koala. And so everybody runs up, and so we see the koala, and then she's got a baby on her back.
Little baby,
tiny baby,
on her, holding onto her back.
Yeah, and so she runs over this tree, and of course we frightened her because I'm loud, and there's a bicycle there.
It was the kid
there's a
on
bicycle.
The
Yeah, the bicycle kid.
I was like, quiet.
Yeah, and the kid. Anyway, so then she goes running up this tree, and so we get to see her climb the tree with the baby. It was unbelievable.
That was great. That was the yes, we've been to Australia. We saw a koala in the wild.
Yeah. So the Koala Trail, and we'll put it. So check by the way, subscribe if you would, please. And in the description, we will leave the names of the trails and the national parks that we went to if you want to recreate and find the patty melons and the kangaroos and the koalas for free. You can go to all these places for free. You don't have to pay to go to one of the sanctuaries. And get your wild and wacky Australia. But there's one more thing we want to talk about.
Something else that is quite wild.
And wacky. It's more in the wacky category than the wild category.
We got introduced to, and that is Vegemite.
Vegemite
and
sandwich.
Our hosts we're at a house sit, and our hosts were so nice to kind of give us the
lay down
one on Vegemite, and they prepared it for us. You just spread it really thin on toast with butter. And
very thin layer.
It's like a seasoning, and it's really good.
It actually,
I liked it. Yeah.
It's got this umami sort of like yeasty flavor, but it's
kind of like a brewer's yeast kind of a
if you like nutritional yeast as a vegan, you would really like Vegemite. But if you're not a vegan, you don't know what that is. It tastes kind of like spoiled beer, but good. Put it on some fat and on some carb, you'll love it.
So wacky and wild.
Wacky and wild Australia. So those are kind of our first week in Australia, and we've knocked out koalas, kangaroos, patty melons, kookaburras,
lorikeets,
eucalyptus trees, and Vegemite.
Pelicans.
Bin chickens. And Vegemite.
We've seen it all.
Yep. So anyway, what will happen in the next 5 months and 2 weeks? What will we see then? We'll let you know. Stay tuned.